Just like that, the second hour is here. OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network.
Getting closer to the Chuttons, Hutton. I like saying that.
Or is it
Chuttons, Hutton.
Chuttons, Hutton. Yeah, the Chutton Awards.
We're getting closer to the Chuttons, Hutton.
Yeah, we've got that coming up in hour number 3. So we're about an hour and 15 minutes away from the start. We've got Haley Karania as our master of ceremonies, our host.
Yes.
That's coming up. That's
Someone's
got
to keep us in order.
We also have Danny Cannell joining us in an hour. We'll preview the college football playoff championship game. And we kick off right now, hour number 2. Chad, we like to live vicariously through those that we have no chance of reaching in terms of
their status,
tier, status. And we love doing this earlier during the Major League Baseball playoffs. He is now fresh off the $75 million win. Mattress Mack. Jim McInville joins us, Gallery Furniture down in Texas, and he's now placed a $3 million plus bet on TCU to beat Georgia and win the national title with an opportunity to win $9 million plus. Mattress Mack, welcome back to the show. Thank you for the time. How are you?
Jonathan, Chad, doing great. Glad to be on the show. Go Frogs.
Yeah, so you're all in. I know McLean is as well at gallerysports.com. I've read the preview. And I also have watched you two together where you're tag teaming this, and your prediction is the confidence because of where you reside or based on what you've seen on the field?
I think it's where I reside primarily, but obviously TCU's had a great year. Not to take anything from Georgia, they've had a better year, but I just thought at plus 400, the money line was way out of whack.
Do you feel like you know more about furniture or sports betting? Because you're an expert in both fields.
No, I'm not. I'm not an expert in sports betting, but I'm an idiot savant in furniture. That's for sure. And sports betting, it just helps to get lucky and have a team you can ride like the Houston Astros.
Do you get asked to speak at furniture conventions the way you get asked to speak on sports radio shows? Because I feel like, you've got to be a well sought after guest for any number of different avenues. But are you speaking at furniture conventions across the country also? Because you need to be, if not.
No, they don't like me because I'm kind of a rebel and I do things my own way. So I stay out of furniture conventions. I like to speak to customers out here every day. That's how I get paid.
Yeah, he's in the shop right now. Mattress Mack joins us. Okay, so how many sports books did you have to visit in order to place this bet this time compared to the World Series?
Well, the World Series was such a huge amount. It was about 5 or 6. This time it was just DraftKings. They took a lot. Caesars took a lot. And Win Sports took some, so all 3 of them were good partners, and they took the bet. Obviously, Caesars was a little concerned after they took that $30 million loss at the World Series, but they still took a big boy bet, so good for Caesars.
So DraftKings, you're doing this online. Do you know what was the cap out amount for what you could bet online with DraftKings?
I didn't reach it. I told them I wanted to bet 1.5 at plus 370, and they took it all. So good for my friend Johnny Velo over there and people at DraftKings. And then Caesars took about the same amount. And then I bet the top out limit at Win was to win 500,000. I bet 131,000 at plus 370.
Mac, what did Caesars tell you when they had to pay you out $30 million with the big loss? Are they eager to take your money again, or is it like, hey, you're too good at this, we're paying you way too much?
No, they took it. They reported in their conference call that my big bet kind of hurt their earnings, but Caesars is a great organization. Caesars is a great organization, and more than anybody else, they're willing to put their big girl and big boy britches on and gamble every day. So I'm a huge advocate of Caesars, as I am for DraftKings, some of the other guys. You
got to walk us through this process of you win that much money from somewhere. And most places, you're on the road, you're in a casino, you start winning, and what do? They come to you, we're going to upgrade you to a suite. We're going to give you passes to the show. We're going to give you free dinner because they want to keep you there until you lose the money back to them. Do they throw you a celebration? Do they offer you champagne when you take your winnings from a sports book like that? Or are they really angry when you show up to collect?
No, they're not angry. They're good about it. But I do have more Caesars reward points than anybody in history. I don't play casino games. My wife loves to. My daughter loves to. But I don't play casino games. So I got lots of Caesars reward points. And if any of your listeners want to go to Caesars for free, tell them to call me. I can probably hook them up.
Love this guy.
Well,
love it.
Mattress Mack joins us. So where will you be in SoFi? I'm assuming you're traveling to watch this game, much like you did the World Series.
No, well, the World Series was easy because it was Houston, and the Philly fans are a little rough, but they taught me some new words in Philly. But as far as this game, I'll be right here at Gallery Furniture watching it on the TV as I continue to sell mattresses and deliver them that night all the way up to kickoff. So I'll be right here in the shop.
All right. Hey, so you've got frog fever. That's what McLean says. All in. So tell us, you have a new Astros deal to get twice the money back. Is that true for what's upcoming next?
By mattress 3,000 plus, the Astros win the World Series in 2023. You get double your money back. That's been very well received. And now this one is much more immediate. If TCU wins, you get double your money back. So lots of people buying mattresses this week to pull on the TCU Horned Frogs in a admittedly tough game, but I think a winnable game against Georgia.
Are you surprised that more business owners that can afford to do this, let's be honest, there are those out there that are not doing this model that you've done, and you've crushed it because you've got the win-win going?
Yeah, it's tricky though. You got to know these people and develop a relationship with these bookmakers, because if you burn them 2 or 3 times, they get a little gun shy. So I've worked hard, and some of the staff has here as well, to establish good relationship with these people and make it a win-win for them, where even though they might lose a bet, they get plenty of publicity. So I've got great partners in Caesars, DraftKings, MGM, all sorts of people that have done these big bets with me.
Hey, how are things going with Gallery Sports? We obviously love having John McLean on and enjoy reading his coverage at that website. How are things going for you guys with that? I know obviously you're a huge part in that endeavor as well.
Yeah, it's going good. We concentrate on Texas and Louisiana sports, so going very well. U of H basketball is extremely hot right now, so lots of people covering that. Gallery Sports has made a tremendous leap forward in the number of viewers and this and that over the past 3 or 4 months since its inception. So we're thrilled to have John and other great writers writing for us, and thrilled to have teams like the Houston Cougars and the Houston Astros we can cover that everybody wants to get more information on, and maybe looking at some type of betting site in the future.
Mattress Mack joins us. How are you betting the NFL playoffs, Mac?
I'm trying to find the best odds on a futures bet so I can get heavy on a futures team after the regular season ends Sunday, and then hopefully ride them through the Super Bowl. The best way for me to do a promotion on the Super Bowl is to have a futures bet at 6 or 8 to 1 versus 2 to 1 the week before the game.
Yeah, so you've got to wait. You've got to figure out the seeds and the pairings first in home field before you can come up with that.
And which team I think can make it through the 2 or 3 games to get at the Super Bowl. Last year I had Tennessee, and they lost, and then I
sorry about that.
I bet you don't have them this year.
No, I don't have them this year, but I got on Cincinnati for the last 2 games. Of course, Cincinnati lost Super Bowl, but Cincinnati did me very well.
And how eager are you for the 12-team playoff to get here?
12-team playoff?
Yeah, for college.
College football.
Yeah, it screws up a lot of these bowl games, but I'm sure it's more revenue for NCAA, hopefully more NIL money for the players. So I think they'll have a bumps along the road, but it'll be exciting, and that way hopefully we can have more than one Texas team in the 12-team playoff. I think this is the first Texas team that's been in the Final Four, so we're excited about the TCU Horned Frogs, and people all across the state are pulling for the Frogs. Go Frogs!
Jim, I'm curious. Has anyone been smart enough in the NIL space to approach you yet with one of these collectives in the state of Texas about partnering with you're working with one now? Tell us about it, if so.
I'm working with the University of Houston basketball team, and I really have a lot of respect for those people over there. They run a very tight ship, so they've got a separate thing where the NIL money goes into. So I'm working with those guys, and they give us some ability to cover the Cougars more intensely on the Gallery sports site. So it's been a very good relationship us with the Cougars players on the NIL, and the team's playing very well. We'll look forward to hopefully they get to March Madness and get to the Final Four. The Final Four is held right here at NRG Stadium in Houston in April.
If we're able to make it down there for that, we're coming over to Gallery Furniture to see you.
Come on over, buy a mattress, and hopefully the Cougars are still alive and you can get it free.
That's right. Hey, thank you so much. Just to clarify for us what you have bet and what you stand to win individually on Monday night.
3.1 million stand to win about 9 million profit, and most of that will go back to the customers because the customers are in here buying these mattresses like hotcakes right now. So we're looking forward to a tennis victory by TCU. I'm talking to Tennessee, so I'm befuddled here. Looking forward to a big victory by the Frogs, and then lots of money going back to our customers. And it should be a lot of fun Monday night. Should be an exciting game.
That's right. You got to pay the McLean salary as well, which is always very steep. So
about half of those that profit will go straight to John McLean.
Nobody knows more about pro football than John. He's just amazing. Quite the guy.
That's right. Mattress Mack has been our guest. We're rooting for you here. We love seeing this each and every time your name pops up with another bet. So keep it up. And here's to the next $30 million windfall that you're going to get. And you've got all the sports books crying about it. I love it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Chad. Always great to be on the show.
Thank you, Mac. There's Mattress Mack, Jim McInville.
Mac is the
Gallery
man.
Furniture, GallerySports.com. Love that dude. And his background and stories. And so I've always been fascinated where you walk into a casino and you have no interest in anything, no card games, nothing. And he's just going straight to the sports book.
Yeah, it's amazing all the rewards points or whatever somebody has at the casino that he doesn't use any of them. Incredible. I would kill to have that level of energy, by the way, that he has on. I mean, the moment we say goodbye to the man, he is already hanging up. And he's like in motion, moving to go sell more mattresses as he hangs up with us. It's incredible.
Oh, look at that guy.
He's selling them like hotcakes.
Knowing he's won. And
I love that he watches the game in his store, too.
Yeah.
And invites people to come down and watch with him.
I mean, let's go. You think McLean's there?
I think that'd be a great OutKick trip at some point. Just go and visit John McLean and sit there and watch one of these games when he's got $3 million on it with Mattress Mack.
I also like how he's like, it's based on, where I reside more than it is what I've seen on the field, because he knows he's up against Georgia here. But if TCU answers, Chad, the way they answered against Michigan, this is going to be a great game. This is not some massacre that I think many are expecting based on just going into the playoff. Before you even saw TCU Michigan, going into the playoff, if you said TCU is going to win in advance, Ohio State or Georgia, you're thinking they're playing for the national title. Based on what I saw from the Frogs, I'm not saying I can't lean into the fact that I think it's a boat race. I think this is a very competitive game, and it's due in large part to 15 with Duggan.
I hope it is, and I do think that because of the way they played this year, and the way they can run it, it's going to be a lot harder against Georgia. Even with Michigan's good run defense, it's going to be a lot harder against Georgia. But the way they run it, the way Duggan runs it, is a bit of an X factor, so I think they could stay with them. I just really believe that Georgia saw their big fright in that Ohio State game, and they're past it.
Best punch.
That's the biggest hurdle. Down 11, 6-7 minutes left in the game. To come back and win that, I could see TCU pushing them for a while. I just think Georgia's going to win relatively easily in this game. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a good game.
You like me, I wish this was on the East Coast somewhere compared to L.A., between TCU and Georgia.
Well, it's when you get something like this and it's the flip-flop of, man, this would be cool to be happening in Atlanta this year.
Atlanta, Indy, like any of these.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit too much of a home game for Georgia. I get that. But something that's close proximity, if it's in the Cotton Bowl, for instance, to TCU, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a home game for TCU.
Yeah, or like if USC made the playoff, this would have been insane.
Yes.
USC, Georgia, right?
Yep.
And I saw Darren Ravel, he put out some fake news report on the fact that TCU didn't sell out their full allotment of tickets, where the AD came back and said, no, in fact, I went down to the ticket office to check on this. We turned people away for people that are headed out to Los Angeles for this game on behalf of TCU.
I would think if you have any attachment to TCU,
you're there.
You're going.
Have to.
You're going. I've got a buddy who's married to a girl who graduated from TCU. Never heard her talk much about TCU, but they're immediately posting with the airplane, headed to L.A. buying tickets to go to it. I mean, you got to go. Georgia, now, it's funny. Remember, the Alabama that got to the point where it was almost so common to go to a national championship that they weren't selling as many tickets at times?
Yeah.
If you're TCU, you're going.
Georgia fans have had this booked since last year, knowing the side of the venue.
They're ready to go. They've got all the hotels in Inglewood are probably booked up for months from Georgia fans.
Coming up, we will dive into the NFL playoffs, and we'll do that by previewing tomorrow's games. There's 2 of them. Chiefs, Raiders, Titans, Jaguars. We will also peek ahead to some other scenarios, the playoff picture as it sits right now, and Black Monday is around the corner. How many openings are we going to see across the NFL where head coaches and staffs are out, fired after Sunday's results? All of that and more next on OutKick 360.
Man, just getting into the craziness. We've got the college football playoff championship game coming up on Monday. But looking back, your opinion, the semifinal Saturday was just so wild, and getting to watch these games and coming down to the wire and the back and forth. Let's start off with Michigan TCU. You know, you got Max Duggan and the way that he played. Jim Harbaugh and his squad, it just seemed like they kind of laxed out there in the middle, and TCU took advantage. And what were your takeaways of how TCU is now playing for a national championship?
I was pretty stunned that it happened and pretty stunned by the way it happened. So I guess going in, if you were to tell me an upset's going to happen, not the craziest thing in the world. I didn't expect it, but it's not a wild concept that a 9-point favorite or underdog could win a game. When you start to see it play out, and you realize Michigan has these weapons that have gotten them to where they are, and they are electing not to use those weapons. Inside zone was a figment of your imagination in that game. It just didn't happen. Therefore, using J.J. McCarthy's legs really didn't happen. The way that you had seen it happen earlier in the season, using Donovan Edwards down inside the 5, where they got inside twice and scored 0 points from those trips, didn't happen. So I was sort of incredulous watching how it was unfolding. So here's what's funny. We were at the Peach Bowl, and that game's getting ready to happen, and I was on the field watching warm-ups, and I was standing there talking. Let me whisper. I was standing there talking with Urban Meyer, and he is watching the video board along with a lot of the other Ohio State staffers. Yeah. And so it's kind of always a surreal environment. If you've ever been at that late playoff game, the early game's happening as your game's getting warmed up. And if you're in a stadium that has a big video board, like Mercedes-Benz has that ribbon board, it's on and the players can see it. And certainly the fans are reacting. So when TCU would score, Urban Meyer's just like going crazy, like a pure fanboy, just cheering like openly. And you're seeing some of the players on the field acknowledge it. And you're seeing some of the staffers on the sideline acknowledge it and like cheer. And all the while you're saying, hold on, we got a game that's going to kick off here in an hour. I'm not saying they weren't focused. I'm just saying it was a weird dynamic. But yeah, right. Watching that unfold, and then just you knew what was immediately going to come after that. And that was Michigan lost. Okay, now we start up the Jim Harbaugh NFL rumor train, and that's going on even as we speak. So I was a little dumbfounded, to be honest with you. Not that they lost, but the manner in which they lost.
Is that going to transition? And I know we'll get into Georgia here in just a minute, but we've seen teams in the past where they get all up for one game and they put it all on the line. And then come that second game, and I'm not even just talking about playoffs. I could be talking about regular season as well. Can TCU do that again? Can they have that same type of energy? Can they play that same type of defense, and which was lacking in the third quarter? But I'm saying, can they get up for that type of game one more time?
I don't doubt they'll be up, but there are things that have to happen. You can call it disrespecting TCU if you want to. I fully respect the program, but we got to be real here. We're talking about a 12 or 13-point spread for a reason. There are things Georgia would have to do to assist them. Football happens that way sometimes. It just happened in the Michigan game. Michigan did some things to assist them. Credit TCU for grabbing the game and taking it. If Georgia doesn't do that, no, I don't think any amount of hype or being up will matter, because Georgia's a better team than you. They're that much better than you. If you can start to pull them out into the deeper end of making some mistakes, whether they be self-inflicted or whether you can steal a possession or two, onside kicks, fake punts, etc., all of which I think will have to be pulled out of the bag by TCU in this game.
Oh, thanks to Mattress Mack for joining us. Coming up in 40 minutes, Danny Cannell. Preview more of the college football national championship game, the big matchups. And I'll ask Danny, of the two quarterbacks, which guy does he have more faith in to have the game of his life? Because both guys show up. It's hard to bet against either guy, honestly, with what we've seen in the semis and the last full year with Stetson Bennett.
Here's the problem. It's going to take Max Duggan's game of his life to win this game. It's not going to take Stetson Bennett's best game ever to beat TCU. That's the difference between these two teams. Max Duggan is going to have a historic Vince Young Rose Bowl against USC type performance in order to beat Georgia. That's how good this Georgia program has become. I truly believe that. Ohio State had comparable talent to Georgia, and they played really well and had a chance to win it. I think that's as close as anyone's going to get. But, I mean, Stetson Bennett can't be bad. Don't get me wrong. He's got to be good to win the game. He can't go in there and be terrible or anything. But I just think Duggan has to be that great in order for TCU to win.
I'm hoping he is. I just want to see the storyline play out again. And, I mean, if he is, it still doesn't mean that TCU wins the game, you know, to what, Chad, what you're saying. Like, I'm hopeful that it's just another classic and we get a three-pack, a trio of great games from the college football playoff, including Monday night. Hit us up on social at OutKick360. We hope to subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. You can join Chad in the chat.
Chat's on fire today.
Oh, good.
Chad and the chat, both on fire today. I'm on fire in the chat as we speak.
I'm eager to see what they have to say about the Chuttons, the awards, the big winners and losers.
I think they're going to object. You know, people in the chat, you know what they like to do, Hutton? They like to object.
Complain.
To things being said.
That's cool.
That's what they like to do. And I've liked that. People like to get contentious in this chat at times. Sometimes they're in agreement. Most of the time, they hate whatever we're saying. But I love that part about it. I tell you what people love, Mattress Mack. That's firing up the chat right now with people loving Mattress Mack, and for good reason.
Chiefs are 13-3. They are in Vegas for Week 18, and you've got Kansas City with the opportunity to get the number 1 overall seed. And the NFL has laid out the process for all of this, but we could see KC number 1 and still have to go to the neutral site for the AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes, he's 40 touchdowns now for the second time in his career passing. He's gone over 5,000 passing yards for the second time in his career. He's only the third quarterback in NFL history to accomplish that twice in a single career. The others are Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. And he's the MVP right now as they finish things up in Vegas against the Raiders. Meanwhile, Jarrett Stidham threw for 365 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first career start against the 49ers, a game that ended in overtime.
I was very impressed with his performance, that's for sure. And Kansas City, I mean, they had a scare last week from Denver. There's no slam dunk here. I mean, it looks like one, okay, Kansas City, tons to play for. Vegas, not as much. Jarrett Stidham in at quarterback. This is going to be a pushover. I don't see it that way with this game, with Stidham trying to win that job. So I think this has potential to be a really good game Saturday afternoon.
And then what the NFL did by scheduling Jacksonville where they did is really interesting. You know, the discussion all week has been about limiting the amount of teams impacted by competitive imbalance or giving one team an edge over the other based on what happened Monday night. And I agree. That's how it should be. Right now there are 4 teams that will be impacted, and that's not even the teams playing in this game, Jacksonville and Tennessee. It's either it's Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and potentially Baltimore. And what they've done to Jacksonville is Jacksonville elected to play their starters. Fine. We don't disagree with that. Benched them in the third quarter because they were up 28-3. That was Sunday in Houston. Now they have to turn around on a short week. After playing Sunday, they're hosting the Titans for the AFC South Championship game, where the winner is in. We detailed there's still a scenario where Jacksonville can get in what they lost. They need a lot of help. But it's very interesting that the NFL elected, because they had the right to move this game and put any matchup they wanted to on Saturday night on ABC. And what they've done is they took a Titans team that played on Thursday against Dallas with extended rest, and they have Jacksonville coming on short rest back into this game, and a Titans team that rested the most impactful starters, guys like Derrick Henry. I think there is an advantage with that.
Oh, I think there's definitely an advantage, and I think we've talked about it, but both coaches made the right decision in how they approached the previous week's game. This is one that, for the Titans, with all of the built-in excuses of the guys that are out, starting with their starting quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, a lot of those excuses are gone because of the week's rest and then the long layoff leading up to this game, right? My point is, this is a depleted roster, and they don't have a great chance, but any chance they have it with Josh Dobbs, they have it with this roster that's going to get a lot more healthy, right, than it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
And think about the run that Jacksonville's been on. They've won 6 of their last 9 games. And in those 6 wins, they are putting up a lot of points, 27 points, 28 points. They posted 40 during that stretch run, 31. There's a couple of others with 36. They scored 19 as well during the stretch, which was a win. That was that Thursday night game in New York where both teams were kind of sleepwalking against the Jets. But they went from a Jags team that slow out of the gates, showing not much potential, sluggish, trying to piece some things together after what was a crazy year with Urban Meyer. And then you had the situation where you finally get to Peterson taking the job. And, Chad, they have now turned into a team that I think can win a game in the postseason if they get in.
Yeah, and they've turned into a team that they're set up for success to be the next team in the AFC South more than anything else. I look at Jacksonville and think, well, now I think the pressure's kind of on Jacksonville starting not necessarily this game or to win a playoff game, but going into next year, they're the favorite. There's no doubt about it. What's going on in Indy with Houston needing to draft a quarterback right now? Jacksonville's got their quarterback. They've got really young, good pieces on defense that are high first-round draft picks. They're a team that's set up to win this division for the foreseeable future, similar to the way the Titans were the last few years. So that's the good news with Jacksonville. Every other team in that division, starting with their opponent in this de facto AFC South Championship game, they've got big-time question marks this offseason about how they move forward, whether a coach is going to come back or not, who's going to be the coach, who's going to be the GM in Indy. We know that's a decision to be made. Quarterback, GM, and with the Titans too. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with everyone else.
Yeah, and you have a firm grasp now where Lawrence can take his name and elevate it to the other young quarterbacks in the AFC individually.
Yeah.
You start listing all this based on what can happen over the next 2 or 3 weeks for that offense, for that team and franchise.
And the Titans have taken advantage of instability around them in the division the last few years.
Like this year.
Now they're the team that's unstable. They're one of the 3 teams
They're
that's unstable right now.
Yeah,
and it's Jacksonville, believe it or not, that you look at and say, that's an organization that's got their stuff together right now with Doug Peterson, right? I mean, you look at it and think, good young core, good coach. He's an adult. He's the adult in the room for that team, and they're headed in the right direction. You look at, you like the coach in Nashville with the Titans and Mike Vrabel. Derrick Henry, how much longer is he going to be Derrick Henry? But he's a great piece to have. Houston, who knows? Indianapolis is an absolute circus throughout this season. So
who knows?
It's the Jags division for the foreseeable future.
Sunday slate in the late afternoon. So the NFL has everything to be announced, and then they split the games that matter versus the games that don't, really, for competitive edge there. They want all the games that factor into playoff scenarios, for the most part, kicking off at the same time at 4:25 Eastern every week 18. And Chargers, Broncos, the Chargers with a win are guaranteed to go on the road in the AFC South next week for Wild Card Weekend. And they also are riding the hot hand with wide receiver play. They're getting Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They've had them back now for a handful of weeks. And over the last 4 games, they're 4-0 with that duo back in the lineup and playing healthy. 57 catches, nearly 700 yards. It's not like Justin Herbert's numbers just pop off the page to you touchdown pass-wise during the stretch, but the efficiency of the offense when it matters, in the moments. Those guys are picking up the pace, and that's why I've seen the comparison to the Chargers team this year being Cincinnati of last year. Keep in mind, too, a lot of those saying that, a lot of those people, they were also picking the Chargers to be the team out of that division to top the Chiefs and to be a Super Bowl contender. I don't think they're that because they can't stop the run. Their defense is not improved in that category. But they do have the young quarterback that can take over a game.
Yeah. With the Chargers?
Yes.
Yeah. It's young quarterback, you're saying?
Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay. Because I'm about to say, can't stop the run. Also, I wish they could run the ball better. You know, to be Cincinnati of a year ago had a good running game.
Well, Austin Eckler
going
can
to the
run the
playoffs.
football.
Yeah.
Austin Eckler's the top leading scorer. He's the leading scorer in the NFL for back-to-back years.
Yeah. But their rushing yards per game, I don't think great. But that's a product also of Herbert, who's passing the ball well.
Yeah, they throw it way too much.
Yeah.
You're right. That's also because they've been down in some games here. So the Chargers playing this game on the road in Denver. Denver's defense, man, they have 12 losses. 9 of those 12 losses have been by 7 points or less, and it's not because the offense has been catching up. It's because the defense has been keeping it close. This is a game LA needs. We'll get to that in a moment because they need to guarantee they're going through the AFC South and not one of the other 3 teams in which would likely be, it would be Cincinnati or Buffalo in this case. Chad.
The Chargers, by the way, 30th out of 32 teams running it, 91 yards per game. Houston and Tampa Bay, the only 2 behind them, which surprised me with Austin Eckler and some of his personal stats, but not a good rushing. I want to believe Herbert is there in terms of in the clutch in the playoffs is going to go off Joe Burrow style in these playoffs. But Hutton, hey, early in the year I was the one saying, do it, prove it if you're the Chargers, and they've done that during the stretch to get to the playoffs, and now let's see what they can do with it.
And a lot of their run, so they would say their screen game is an extension of their run. It's a lot like Kansas City, where you just look at the direct numbers. That's where Eckler factors in. You know, those quick dump-off screens, open space. They lack the guy that's going to be in the rhino, right? The wrecking ball guy. And can you pick up the 2 yards when you need it on a huge 4th down, when you've got to go get those points? Giants, Eagles. So New York's guaranteed a playoff spot. Philly, we got Jalen Hurts officially listed as questionable for this game. Philly with a loss and a Dallas win. Philadelphia is headed to the wild card weekend and not the first round bye, and Dallas is winning the division. All
That's
of a sudden,
nuts.
Because Hurts went out with the injury at 11-1, back-to-back losses now. For what we've seen was 13-1. So what we've seen since that injury, and you have Minshew, who wasn't awful, but also wasn't winning within this offense. And while we saw Hurts return to practice, he's still listed as questionable for this game. Thought is he's playing. Lamar Jackson, by the way, not playing. The thought is Jalen Hurts is playing in this game, but to be determined.
It felt like Philadelphia had clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC like a month ago. Just looking at the standings that time.
They could have. They needed 1 win.
They were close, right? I mean, 3 weeks ago they were right there, 1 win away, and now to think that there's a scenario where they don't win the division and they're playing the first week in the playoffs is absolutely crazy. And it slams shut the door about anything with Jalen Hurts and being yes, you're always a product of your system, obviously. Mm-hmm. As a quarterback, that's going to help you or hurt you. But he's a great quarterback. I mean, Jalen Hurts has come into his own this year. Now that Philly's provided him with the right guys around him, it's going to be a fun team to watch, but they need to be the number 1 seed. I think the huge disappointment if they end up playing wild card weekend, given the most of this season for that Eagles team.
68 sacks for Philadelphia's defense. Hassan Reddick, second leader in the NFL for sacks. I believe he has 16 right now. They have 4 players, first time ever we've seen it in the league, 4 players with double-digit sacks. That defense is not getting the credit because we've been talking about the offense all year. They can beat you multiple ways. They need to beat the Giants. Daniel Jones has just earned the right to remain the starter. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option this offseason, and because of that, he's about to get paid. I realized they could tag him. He's about to get paid. for the job he's done. And don't underestimate his ability to run. 91 rushing yards last week and 2 touchdowns. The Giants are a live dog in the postseason because of their coaching staff and because of Barkley and Jones.
Yeah, he's getting paid either way. If he gets tagged, he's getting paid also. So, I mean, that's incredible to think about the success of the Giants throughout this year. And even halfway through the season, we're still thinking, well, you don't really know about Daniel Jones, even with some of this team's success. But it just kept on, and here they are, one of the more amazing recovery jobs in the NFL with Brian Daboll this year. To go from where they were the last couple seasons to playoffs this year is remarkable. And Daniel Jones is a big part of it.
Did you see the report where Daboll gave Jones, like, total crap calls for his offense in the offseason just to see how he would respond?
Yeah.
Just to test him, without telling him that this wasn't anything like they knew the plays were expected to be blown up or to make him look bad, just to see his mannerisms.
Remember what Daboll was talking about where guys weren't in condition during training camp?
Yeah.
And playing early on, and guys weren't. And now I look back and I wonder, given the fact that he would intentionally give bad calls to his quarterback to test him, how much of that was just talk?
Well, but that was in OTAs and minicamp. The out of shape was after a month when they returned to camp.
Yeah.
And they had 20-plus players injured within the first week of those practices. I think that was legit.
Yeah.
And
either way, he's done a great job, whether he's faking it when he says that or he's doing what he did with Daniel Jones, intentionally giving him bad offensive calls. It's been a great season.
And everyone's pointing to Gettleman. And as a joke, they're pointing to Gettleman and looking at the talent acquisition and then the record that Daboll's been able to do with that talent acquisition. So the Cowboys have the Commanders, by the way, in this other divisional matchup where Dallas could end up with the top seed out of the NFC East, which would be remarkable considering where Philadelphia was in all this. And then Sunday Night Football, Packers-Lions. The Packers, they have found their run game. That is why they are in a win-and-in position. 12 takeaways as well on defense in their last 4. The Lions, though, 5th in the league in points per game. Their defense is awful, but they're 5th in the league in points per game. They can also get in. They need a win or a tie and a Seahawks loss. That would allow Detroit to get the final spot instead of Green Bay.
Hutton, I just saw this, so I have to ask you. Shane Beamer getting that bump over 100% raise to 6.5.
Yeah.
Where do you think that ranks him in the SEC?
8th.
Spot on.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great guess by you.
$6 million. I'm looking at the coach is over 9. Yeah. I mean that's not a. It's going to be a double take when you see the percentage raise, but it's not like they raised him up against someone else. Who else is going to get a raise now because Beamer did?
Oh, Josh Heupel. Let me give you these numbers. He's about to get a huge raise.
Where is he on this?
So this is from Chris Lowe of ESPN. Number 1 is Nick Saban, $11.7 million. Number 2, Kirby Smart, $11.25. Makes perfect sense. Jimbo Fisher's 3rd at $9.5, tied with Brian Kelly, making $9.5 million.
Yeah.
Then it's Lane Kiffin, $9 million, tied with Mark Stoops, $9 million a year. Lane Kiffin makes $9 million a year.
Yeah, they just gave him a bump. He was making 7.
Crazy to me.
They had to keep him.
Billy Napier, $7.4 million. Eli Drinkwitz, $6.5 million, tied now with Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer got a bump up to where he's now even with Eli Drinkwitz, which is crazy. Hugh Freeze, 6.5. Sam Pittman, 6.2. Josh Heupel, $5 million. So Heupel is 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
So they
in the SEC.
So they gave him the $1 million bump last year. He was around 4, right?
Yeah, $1 million bump. By the way, Clark Lee is 13th at 3.75, and Zach Arnett, the newly promoted coach at Mississippi State, $3 million. Huge raise coming for Josh Heupel. That's my big takeaway from this list.
He's going above 9 and beyond.
I think that he is going to be even with Kiffin and Stoops at least, would be my guess. He's about to get a $4 million raise. But here's the other weird thing about it. He's not getting offered by anybody, right? Unless the NFL comes calling that we don't know about right now.
But the way Tennessee is operated is they give him the raise and then they announce it 6 months later.
Well, Danny White's also very proactive in he's going to reward you for doing great things.
Yeah.
He's not going to say, we're just going to give you a raise because it's time to give you a raise. But he'll give you an early raise if you've earned it. I think he's going to get a big bump, even though there's not, that we know of, teams coming after him. You mentioned Kiffin. You're right. $9 million. Okay, that's because other teams are coming after him. Brian Kelly needed 9.5 to leave Notre Dame, where he was getting paid a ton, to go to LSU. We know about Jimbo Fisher. Kirby Smart, that's a merit-based $11.25 million.
Oh, yes.
Based on what he's done there.
Yes.
Nick Saban, same thing. Mark Stoops, Florida State may have flirted a while back. I'm sure other teams have talked to him.
Nebraska.
But that's a merit-based at Kentucky type thing for him.
Yeah.
Josh Heupel's about to get paid.
And deserved.
Yeah.
Deserved. So Tennessee gave Heupel the bump Florida week of last year.
Yeah.
Officially, right?
Well, I think that's when it was announced. It may have been done before the season. Yeah.
Unofficially in July.
But it's still just nuts to me to think that after 2 years, Shane Beamer went from 7-6 to 8-5. 1 game difference at the end of the season. But in those 8 wins, he beat top 10 Tennessee and top 10 Clemson, a big rival in Clemson, another big rival in Tennessee, and he has more than a 100% raise on his salary. Josh Heupel goes from 7-6 a year ago to 11-2, an Orange Bowl champion. So what type of percentage raise does he get?
I think he's going well above Kiffin. I think he's on that next tier.
Do you think that he is in the Brian Kelly? Because if he does it, you're
9.5.
He's going to be tied with Jimbo Fisher and Brian Kelly.
Yes, and that's where he should be.
I know it's a small sample size of only 2 years, but if you ask me right now to give you a power ranking of coaches in the SEC, yeah, he's in that range. I mean, he's right there with Brian Kelly, Lane Kiffin, in the $9 to $9.5 million. He's certainly not Saban or Smart. Brian Kelly's had a longer track record because of his time at Notre Dame.
Yep.
But I mean, I'm taking him over Mark Stoops, over Billy Napier, over Shane Beamer, Eli Drinkwitz, Hugh Freeze, Sam Pittman. Go down the list. So maybe you're right. It's just when you see the numbers, it blows your mind when you think about actually, that's 100% increase from $4 million a year ago to a slight bump to $5 million to now possibly $9.5 million.
It's raise season.
That's a big escalation.
It's raise season, or you get paid to fail in college sports as coaching.
I do wonder if, some of the talk from some people about the NFL, if anyone even has a conversation with Josh Heupel about making the jump.
Potentially. There's a couple of. So how many jobs? How many jobs do you think are open on Monday? We know of 3 right now.
3. I think Houston's going to be open.
Okay.
So add that to the list.
So 4.
There's going to be an unexpected one. There always is. Slightly unexpected. I'm going to say 6, just being conservative, 6 or 7.
Yeah, so I think the number is going to start at 6.
Yeah.
I think there could be a surprise team out of the playoffs as well. Tampa comes to mind. And
that was on our list of one and done, the one and done watch list with Todd Bowles, the way the season's gone.
Tampa comes to mind, and I'll explain why coming up. And also, by the way, the 6th team right now would put Cleveland as the 6th, not Arizona. I'm not so sure Bidwell pays Kingsbury to leave. Notoriously cheap. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the surprise on Monday could be Cleveland. And I think the surprise, based on Wild Card Weekend and who is available, could be the Chargers with Staley.
That would be an interesting one. Now,
Sean
month ago,
Payton controls a lot of
this. If you told me that a month ago, I would say for sure, because Sean Payton was even putting the reports were out there. He's most interested in the Chargers because of the quarterback. But now you've got this 4-game winning streak and them going to the playoffs. So,
and what do you do?
Who knows?
Peyton's also tied with Brady, right? So what do you do if you're Miami, who wanted that a year ago, and Brady's willing to come into a situation where you don't know the future of Tua and his health? You're not certain about quarterback. It's really the same spot as they were a year ago based on how they finished. And Mike McDaniel, believe it or not, I mean, Armando had the column at OutKick. He could potentially be out, as crazy as that sounds. Given what ownership wants, with Brady and Peyton. Sean Payton could also be a factor in Tampa. We should also throw that in. If Brady wants to pair himself with Peyton and you want to keep Brady and not necessarily Bowles.
I just don't think Sean Payton's going to go team up with Brady at this point in time. If he's taking a job, because he's going to have his pick. He's going to take the quarterback that's got 10 years left.
He gets to take Brady with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in my scenario.
Look, there's a big immediate return with that. But I just think that Sean Payton, based on those teams that he was kind of breaking down, he wants to pair with the young Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, one of the young quarterbacks that could be available to coach.
Maybe it's Dallas as another surprise.
There's another
one. Coming up, some other headlines. We've got in about 15 minutes, Danny Cannell will join us. But a judge has upheld a West Virginia female sports law, which is great for all. That's next on OutKick 360.
Back to the Christian thing in the broad picture. Your father, how many kids, if you don't mind saying, do you have several kids? One kid?
Seven children.
You have 7 children, so you're a big family man. I did not know that.
Yes.
How many sons? Because this is what I kind of want to dig into.
I have 5 sons.
5 sons, perfect. As a Christian man, how do you feel, like, what is your job when it comes to raising young men in modern America?
Number one, to teach my boys to know and love Jesus. That would be their primary identity in life. To everything else being completely secondary to that. That is number one. Number two would be to make them capable men, right? To make them well-rounded, to make them, able to handle themselves, to make them strong physically, able to fight, able to shoot, able to protect their future, their own families. A great quote, Robert Heinlein, and I'm going to butcher it, but I will attempt it anyways. He basically says that, a man should be able to plan an invasion, change a diaper, cook a meal, build a house, he just goes down this list of, you should be able to do all these things as a man. And then at the very end, he says specialization is for insects. And I did not always think that. All right. I mean, there was times in my life where I didn't care about learning how to weld or be mechanically inclined or any of these other things. I was like, oh, I just want to be a commando. I just want to go and shoot and do hard stuff. And that was a mistake. I mean, I think I've said this before on, I did 2 ship deployments, 2 ARG deployments as a young frogman. And honestly, I was arrogant at the time. And man, here you're on a ship, which was kind of miserable. And I had a bad attitude about it instead of, because I'm like, I should be on land training more. And instead of going, okay, this is where I'm at. Yeah, I don't have to like it, but there's all these master machinists and welders and guys that are, in charge of charts and navigation, to navigate across the globe. And here I could have, if I would have showed just a little bit of interest, those guys would have been happy to be like, oh yeah, I'll teach you how to weld. I'll teach you how to run a lathe, all these things. That now I'm like, man, I want to learn all that stuff. I want to be able to do everything. And some of that's reinforced now. Kind of, we live out on a little bit of a farm, so you do need to be able to, when stuff breaks, you need to be able to fix it yourself, and so there's a lot of value in that. So I want, number one, I want my boys to know and love Jesus, and then number two, to be capable. It's actually, so we do a program called Father-Son Ministry, where it's gone through different iterations. Currently, the way we run it is you show up, we pray, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we start training. And that was very deliberate right there, that, hey, we honor God first, then we honor our nation, and then we start to train. Most of the time we do jiu-jitsu. So that's been just super cool, having the boys go from it just looking clownish, them rolling around, to, man, they're, some of those boys, I will actually, break a sweat rolling with them now, and they will absolutely catch some guys with triangles and arm bar. Like, they're actually learning jiu-jitsu.
Danny Cannell will join us coming up in a matter of minutes. OutKick 360 rolls on. We also have the Chuttons, which is just around the corner.
Chuttons are going to be a big hit on this show. I think it's going to have a life of its own, almost like a movie that goes to DVD and carries on a life of its own.
Yep.
It's going to have a big afterlife on digital. People are just going to rush to it after the fact when we post it at OutKick. It's going to be fun.
Chad, we've discussed in the past, and it's been upheld in West Virginia by a judge, that there is a federal judge that upheld a female sports law, which will keep trans athletes from competing in sports. There's an 11-year-old that is trying to compete against females as a biological male, and that was upheld that they will not be able to compete in female sports in West Virginia.
It's amazing to me that in this day and age that something becomes an issue. I mean, this is something that was never argued for generations.
And the vast majority of Americans agree with this.
Everyone with a brain and common sense says, boys and girls are different physically and probably shouldn't compete in sports against each other. We have held this universal belief together for generations that that's the case. And now suddenly that's being called into question. Good for common sense prevailing here with the judge in West Virginia. It just blows my mind that this is even an issue. Of course, Hutton, this is one that there's no one that really argues it that well. I don't know the right, I can't think of anyone that even would argue against what we're saying right now.
Well, this is now the 19th state that has upheld passed a bill like this over the last several years.
The only argument on the other side of this is consistently, well, it doesn't happen enough to matter. So why do you care? No one argues that men and women should compete in sports against each other, right?
Well, and
stop making it an issue because it's barely happening.
Well, and it affects one person. But it really affects, you're the father of 2 daughters.
Yeah, it's not going to, no.
You don't want a guy competing against Evie.
Of course not.
Yes, a biological male.
Again, the fact that it's an issue blows my mind. It's not been an issue ever, and now suddenly it is. I don't get it.
SEC fans take issue with Danny Cannell. We don't. He joins us next on OutKick 360 across the OutKick network.
college football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Final hour is here. Friday edition OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. Chad, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to the weekend. We've got some great NFL games on
Final
tap.
hour of the show, 5 p.m. Eastern hour. It is 5 o'clock somewhere. That somewhere is the eastern side of the United States right now. And it's 4 o'clock Central here in Nashville, Tennessee. And Hutton, we're about 20 minutes away from the Chuttons.
Yes, we are.
The first and possible last edition of the Chuttons coming up in 20 minutes.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait to hear the winners and losers of the past year in sports. That is in 20 minutes. Right now, though, in Music City, We head.
No one loses when they hear Danny Cannell.
No. And we head to Danny Cannell, who is wearing a hat from Park City, as we preview the college football playoff and more.
Can't hide money, Danny. Can't hide money. You got to wear that hat, don't you?
To be fair, I was in Park City. I was actually in Deer Valley skiing, but I was at a friend's house. It was not mine. It was a freebie. So, and I also wanted you to know, like Jonathan, when you guys were having this little toast and saying, I almost got up and ran to the other room and got one to join you.
Anytime.
But yeah, I know. Next time I come on a Friday at 5, I'm definitely going to take you up on it.
You know what? Any weekday and any time. But just,
with that Park City hat on, I'm shocked that one of the 7 fridges in your house isn't located right next to you, that you even had to get up, Danny. I thought you would just pull out the mini fridge right next to you and be ready to go.
Hey, do you have a Sonic ice machine as well?
Yeah, I've got that. I've got multiple hot tubs around, like one outdoors, indoors,
absolutely.
a sauna, and a steam room. Yeah, our own home spa here at the house. Yeah, for sure.
Danny Cannell with BetOnline, betonline.net, and you can check out BetOnline for a plethora of national championship lines, including the spread, total, game MVP, first touchdown score, margin of victory, total touchdowns, and much, much more. Just based on the spread alone, who do you like in this game and why, Danny?
So I've gone over this a bunch, right? In the lead up to the game, and I really, really wanted to take TCU. It's a lot of points, man. It's like, and they've proved me and others wrong all season long. Although I did pick Kansas State to win the Big 12 championship game. That was the one game where I felt like the exhaustion factor was going to come back. But then I thought Michigan would handle them, and I laid the 7.5 with Michigan. I was wrong. But I just keep on playing this matchup in my head, and I look at these two teams, and if they play 10 times, I think the likelihood is that 7 out of those 10 games, Georgia wins by 2 touchdowns. So if the line's down to 12.5 where it sits now, why wouldn't I lay those points? And everything about TCU, if you want to play TCU, I think is an emotional team of destiny type of pick. And I don't think that's very smart. I don't think that's the way you want to handle your hard-earned money if you want to put a little action in the game. If you want to put a little bit on it and say, man, I love the underdog story, sure, go ahead. But I think if you wanted to win and have not as much concern, that Bulldogs are the place to go. 90% of Georgia's roster is 4- and 5-star talent. I mean, it's a reality. They're one of the most stacked rosters in all of college football, which is why they are where they are, going for back-to-back national championships. And TCU has been able to do more with less. But when they're stacked up and you start going position by position, there aren't many advantages to TCU where you could say, yeah, that makes sense. I think Georgia's a significantly better team, and I think it's the smarter play is to lay the 12.5.
Danny, I love talking to offensive guys and defensive guys about issues like this. The targeting penalty that was wiped away on Marvin Harrison Jr. in the back of the end zone in the Ohio State-Georgia game. We had Bobby Carpenter on, noted Buckeye, who said, I feel like that's not targeting, but I also feel like it's normally upheld and called that way. So I think it probably should have been upheld, but I don't think it's targeting. He's a former linebacker. You as a quarterback and a football fan watching that play that ultimately knocks Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the game, certainly affected Ohio State in that outcome. What did you think about the flag being picked up?
Chad, what's nuts in all this, what are we, 6 or 7 years ago, we don't even blink an eye at that play. We're like, it's good, great breakup, right? He's out of he's out of the game. But as we know, targeting is prevalent in college football. So I think if you had, and this happens all the time, and this is one of my issues with targeting, is it's so vague and unclear in so many circumstances. I work with Dusty Dvorak on the radio. He's a defensive tackle. He says, no way it was targeting. I thought it was. And when I used to work at ESPN, they used to have these seminars where they'd come in and the officials would put up, video, and there'd be 100 people in the room, college football experts and analysts, and the official would stand up there and say, and give us examples like, okay, this is targeting, this is not targeting. And like, I'd say 40% of the room would be like, yep, that's targeting. 60% would be, no way, that's not targeting. It's still that way. It's just The game happens so fast. Sometimes I think there are going to be some calls that are made that are unclear. I thought the hit wasn't helmet to helmet, but I thought it was attack at the point of the head and the head and the neck area, which to me is a part of the definition of targeting. I thought it was going to be targeting. I was surprised it was waved off. Like that to me is where I stood, but yet knowing how many times it's unclear, I'm like, there's nothing that would shock me, whatever they do. Like it's just, you can't ever trust your eyes when you're looking at targeting. You have to trust the officials, which unfortunately they're humans too. And I could be on the other side. It's just, you kind of sometimes have to cross your fingers as a team that's on the wrong side of it or the right side of it and hope it goes your way.
Danny Cannell, our guest, courtesy of Bet Online. So if we rewind things to July 4th weekend, we're discussing the Big Ten adding USC, UCLA, right? And now the mad scramble. What's going to happen to the Pac-12? It's much like Texas A&M, or excuse me, Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC. What's the Big 12 going to do? If TCU alone being in the game, but winning this game, what does this mean for the Big 12, Danny?
Well, I think it's great, right? If you're Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, you're got to be doing jumping jacks, right? Like, thank goodness it's not Oklahoma or Texas. Neither one played for the Big 12 championship last year either. And so you're thinking, man, we don't really need those programs to have a national championship contender. But even more so when you look at the leverage it brings you, because I don't think it's any secret that Brett Yormark has tried to have conversations with the Pac-12 and tried to bring in some of those, teams to the conference, which I do think makes the most sense. I do like, and there's been rumors out there that Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah could join the Big 12. That's another 4 teams. Like, that seems to make some sense. And you could have a 16-team conference with the 4 teams from the American and BYU that are coming in. I hate all of this though, because then what happens to the Pac-12, which has been a traditional, long-standing, part of college football, and that to me puts the Pac-12 in a really dire position where it doesn't even exist. So yeah, I think it's great for college football. At first, I think TCU getting to the championship game is awesome. I think everybody's tired of seeing the same 4 teams in the playoffs, 4 or 5: Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, like some version of those 4. And, we got Michigan last year, but they didn't advance. They got blown out by Georgia. I think it's great, but I think it's huge news for the Big 12, showing that, because I think there's going to be some critics, just like there were this year, questioning, does TCU really belong there? Do they really belong in at this party? And they showed they were more than capable, because what we would be discussing if Michigan had run TCU out or even won by 10 points. Oh, Alabama, they would have won. They should be in this game. Unfortunately, both teams that were questionable as far as resumes represented themselves really well, which I thought was the best case scenario for college football. Because I get chaos and rooting for that, but I also like to be entertained and to see teams rise up to the occasion. And we saw really all 4 teams rise up, and 2 teams were able to advance and 2 teams sadly had to go home.
Danny Cannell, our guest on OutKick 360. And Danny, the crazy thing is, I don't think TCU is some one-hit wonder in this whole deal. They're bringing in their greatest recruiting class ever. They're bringing in top-notch transfers, 3 of which are coming from Alabama. 2 of those 3 are 5-star guys. Trey Sanders at running back, transferring to TCU. 3 Alabama teammates going to be Horned Frogs next year. Could TCU become Oklahoma now that Oklahoma's leaving the Big 12 and be the year-in, year-out team you look at to be one of the final 4 or 8 now that we're moving to 12 teams in the playoff?
For sure. I'd have to see it first, right? I mean, there's the Big 12 was deep this year. I mean, there's a reason why they had a stretch where they played, 4 top 25 opponents, and they didn't finish in the top 25, but like Kansas had an outstanding year. Oklahoma State kind of diminished at the back end of the season, but they're still always going to be a tough out. Like that, I think if you would ask us before the season, who's going to fill the void that Oklahoma and Texas leave behind, we're probably saying Oklahoma State. But the fact that they're vulnerable right now and there's some question marks, they got some guys, 4 wide receivers leaving, Spencer Sanders, their quarterback, is leaving. It does open up a void. But we still do have Oklahoma and Texas in there for another season at least. But why wouldn't TCU, who, by the way, was picked 7th at the preseason to win the Big 12, you know, that's where they were predicted to finish, why wouldn't they be the team to beat? I mean, absolutely. And I think it's a great, like, when you think of high schoolers, you got to put your mind back into a high school mentality. Like, I was recruited. I wanted to go somewhere that won. So it's so like, yeah, of course they're going to do well in recruiting in the transfer portal because nobody wants to go to a team that finished 5-7. I think that's a tough sell. But you go to a team that goes to the playoff and the national championship, and they got some mojo and they get all this attention and they're on national television and game day goes there to Fort Worth. Yeah, all of a sudden it's a lot easier to do your job bringing in players if you're Sonny Dykes. And I think it's an exciting offense. Like, from the offensive side of the ball, they're going to be able to get talent in there because they're going to put up statistics. The defense has been very opportunistic, maybe not statistically great. But yeah, people want to go to a program with some excitement around it. So I think absolutely TCU. I don't know if they replace Oklahoma. Like, they won 6 in a row, Big 12 championships. That maybe nobody ever does, but they've got to be at the top of the list of teams to step up in the void left behind Oklahoma and Texas.
I realize TCU needs this more than Georgia in what I'm about to ask Danny, but which quarterback do you trust to have the game of their life on Monday night more?
Neither. Because I think so. I gave you my pick, right? I think Georgia wins by 12.5. And the way I see this game unfolding, I do think Stetson Bennett will be good like he's been all season long. I don't think he has to be great. I just think he kind of has to, and he has been great at times. Don't get it wrong. But for Max Duggan, he's got to be spectacular in maybe a fashion that he hasn't been this year, because his game is different than CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Those are elite passers. Bryce Young's probably going to go 1 and CJ Stroud's going to go 2. And those are the type of quarterbacks that have fared well against Georgia's secondary. And I do think that is a weakness in really nitpicking when you talk about Georgia. I think that is the area you have to attack them. But I think Kirby Smart has a lot of game film now. He saw Michigan. They got embarrassed again against Ohio State. They're going to come in a little ticked off and say, all right. And I think they'll actually have the exact opposite game plan that they had against CJ Stroud. So I think their plan against CJ Stroud was to flush him from the pocket. And they did. And CJ burned him. Like, he got outside the pocket, extended plays, got some hidden yardage, made throws on the run. With Max Duggan, I think their game plan is going to be, don't let him beat with their legs. Don't let him get outside. Let's force him to be more of a pocket passer. And if you watch TCU throughout the season, he can throw from the pocket, but it's not where he shines. He shines improvising, tough yards. He's physical. He runs hard, and he can make some throws, but he's not going to just slice and dice you like the quarterbacks that I mentioned. Bryce Young last year in the SEC championship game and CJ Stroud a week ago. That's not the type of game he plays. So if TCU pulls off the upset, Max Duggan will be phenomenal. I just think it's not his forte. And with really Quentin Johnson, who is a first-round talent, the supporting cast is good. I don't think they have the depth and the type of freakishly good talent that Alabama and Ohio State have had at skill positions.
Danny Cannell has been our guest. Bet Online is where you can check out the plethora of national championship lines, including the spread, total, game MVP, and much more. Cheers to you. We always love having you on, Danny. We appreciate you, man. And next time you're on, regardless of the day or time, we'll do
Jonathan, Chad, I got to go shotgun one to catch up to you guys.
Yeah, well, or just go.
Stab it with a key.
Next time, join us from your home spot that you have, since you're going to Park City all the time. Please do.
I'll just do it from the hot tub.
Perfect.
See you guys.
The other man, there's Danny Cannell, who has been our guest. Love having him on. And always great perspective. Check out betonline.net for more from Danny. And also SiriusXM is where you can find him, and CBS. Coming up, you can find the Chuttons. Chad, is it me or is it you? We get this a lot. I have once signed your autograph. While you watched me do this, I introduced myself to someone's mother who thought I was you as you looked over from across a tent at a tailgate, and you laughed.
I have. And many times I have walked in NFL stadiums and someone has said, Hutton, I love your work. I said, I love you too. Thank you so much. I do it all for you, the people.
The Chuttons. the first and who knows, maybe last Chutton Awards. Next, we've got Haley Carania, who's about to join us to host these award-winning awards that truly matter for the winners and losers of the last year.
We can promise that, unlike Chris Rock, she will not be touched. She will not be slapped on stage as she presents these awards. That is the only thing we can promise about this award show.
It's going to be awesome, and it's next on OutKick 360.
Man, just getting into the craziness. We've got the college football playoff championship game coming up on Monday. But looking back, your opinion, semifinal Saturday was just so wild. And getting to watch these games and coming down to the wire and the back and forth. Let's start off with Michigan TCU. You know, you got Max Duggan and the way that he played. Jim Harbaugh and his squad, it just seems like they kind of laxed out there in the middle, and TCU took advantage. And what were your takeaways of how TCU is now playing for a national championship?
I was pretty stunned that it happened and pretty stunned by the way it happened. So I guess going in, if you were to tell me an upset's going to happen, not the craziest thing in the world. I didn't expect it, but it's not a wild concept that a 9-point favorite or underdog can win a game. When you start to see it play out, and you realize Michigan has these weapons that have gotten them to where they are, and they are electing not to use those weapons. Inside zone was a figment of your imagination in that game. It just didn't happen. Therefore, using J.J. McCarthy's legs really didn't happen. The way that you had seen it happen earlier in the season, using Donovan Edwards down inside the 5, where they got inside twice and scored 0 points from those trips, didn't happen. So I was sort of incredulous watching how it was unfolding. So here's what's funny. We were at the Peach Bowl, and that game's getting ready to happen, and I was on the field watching warm-ups, and I was standing there talking. Let me whisper. I was standing there talking with Urban Meyer, and he is watching the video board along with a lot of the other Ohio State staffers. Yeah. And so it's kind of always a surreal environment. If you've ever been at that late playoff game, the early game's happening as your game's getting warmed up. And if you're in a stadium that has a big video board, like Mercedes-Benz has that ribbon board, it's on and the players can see it. And certainly the fans are reacting. So when TCU would score, Urban Meyer's just like going crazy, like a pure fanboy, just cheering like openly. And you're seeing some of the players on the field acknowledge it. And you're seeing some of the staffers on the sideline acknowledge it and like cheer. And all the while you're saying, hold on, we got a game that's going to kick off here in an hour. I'm not saying they weren't focused. I'm just saying it was a weird dynamic. But yeah, watching that unfold, and then just you knew what was immediately going to come after that. And that was Michigan lost. Okay, now we start up the Jim Harbaugh NFL rumor train, and that's going on even as we speak. So I was a little dumbfounded, to be honest with you. Not that they lost, but the manner in which they lost.
Is that going to transition? And I know we'll get into Georgia here in just a minute, but we've seen teams in the past where they get all up for one game and they put it all on the line. And then come that second game, and I'm not even just talking about playoffs. I could be talking about regular season as well. Can TCU do that again? Can they have that same type of energy? Can they play that same type of defense, and which was lacking in the third quarter? But I'm saying, can they get up for that type of game one more time?
I don't doubt they'll be up, but there are things that have to happen. You can call it disrespecting TCU if you want to. I fully respect the program, but we got to be real here. We're talking about a 12 or 13-point spread for a reason. There are things Georgia would have to do to assist them. Football happens that way sometimes. It just happened in the Michigan game. Michigan did some things to assist them. Credit TCU for grabbing the game and taking it. If Georgia doesn't do that, no, I don't think any amount of hype or being up will matter, because Georgia's a better team than you. They're that much better than you. If you can start to pull them out into the deeper end of making some mistakes, whether they be self-inflicted or whether you can steal a possession or two, onside kicks, fake punts, etc., all of which I think will have to be pulled out of the bag by TCU in this game.
Welcome back to OutKick 360. I'm Haley Carania, your host for the first annual Chutton Awards, the most important award show in all of sports. Jonathan Hutton and Chad Withrow, who just pulled off one hell of a costume change, I must say, will be naming the winners and losers of 2022 in the following 6 categories: the Michael Jordan Alpha Award, the Quiet Quitting Award, the Best Rant Award, the Keith Olbermann Beta Award, the Mike Leach Most Interesting Person of the Year Award, and finally, the OutKick Person of the Year Award. Each category will have 3 finalists, but there can only be 1 winner, so let's get started. We're kicking off the Chuttons with Category 1, the Michael Jordan Alpha Award. Obviously, he is the GOAT. He is the pinnacle, dominates his competition. Everyone fears him, but at the same time, everybody wants to be him. And this award goes to the biggest alpha of the year. The finalists in this category are the Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey, Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge, LSU gymnast and NIL mogul Livy Dunn. Guys, what do you think?
First off, the Chuttons are already off to an amazing
Terrific start.
And a great start by Haley on these finalists, our nominees for the Michael Jordan Alpha of the Year, rightly named. Look, Greg Sankey.
By the way, we're going Golden Globe style here, so there are drinks on the
Ricky Gervais as well.
Yes.
I look forward to being insulted. The most powerful person in college sports.
I'm going to make Hutton cry during these awards today.
The most powerful person in college sports is Greg Sankey.
Yep.
And he comes about it with a very measured, for the most part, balanced and neutral approach in his delivery. He's always scheming behind the scenes, though. I love him as an alpha finalist for 2022.
Yeah, he's in one of those guys that everyone that talks about him just has nothing but great things to say about his intelligence. It's a crowded field for the Alpha Award this year. Aaron Judge made the alpha play with getting paid and also staying a Yankee. And, of course, with the season he had.
$360 million.
So that's a good one. Livy Dunn almost created her own avenue in terms of NIL and the amount of money she's making as a gymnast at LSU. And I'm not sure who I think is going to win this or who should win it, but it's some great nominees this year.
No doubt. And Haley, who wins in 2022?
Well, the winner of the MJ Alpha Award this year is Livy Dunn.
I've got no issue with that. I love it. Whatever committee is voting on the winners of this award just did a fabulous job. Livy Dunn is an impressive person in the business sense of what she's been able to create.
Well, and she's ridiculed for being in the NIL field, but it's a problem for equal rights. But you had 4 of the top 7 female earners of the 2021 fiscal year in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit model edition of the magazine, and they were empowering. She's doing the exact same thing, and she's getting paid through name, image, likeness. Livy Dunn.
I'd like to also have the solo camera on me right now. I'd like to take this moment to announce that Livy Dunn wanted to be here to accept this award, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. She just said she had better things to do. But she said if we make it to a second edition of the Chuttons and she wins any award, she will be here on site to accept that award. Thank you very much. We go back to Haley Carania for our next award.
Well, we're looking forward to that next year. But the next award is the Quiet Quitting Award. And each year, new trendy terms are added to the Urban Dictionary, if you will, and quiet quitting has quickly replaced work from home in the latest office slang. It's when you don't have the balls to actually put in your 2 weeks, but you stop doing the work anyway. In other words, you choose to suck at your job. So this year's finalists are former Nebraska head coach Scott Frost, former president of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, and finally, Brooklyn Nets guard Ben Simmons.
Scott Frost, what a total collapse. What a total collapse. And here's why it's quiet quitting, Chad, for him. Love the nominee. Because he had friends and his staff fired. He agreed to this in order to come back, only to be fired at his alma mater, at his school, literally weeks into the season, just prior to his buyout going down. That is the definition of quiet quitting.
The opposite of quiet quitting is me wearing this tuxedo T-shirt
I agree.
for every show from here on out. I think that I just found my style. this is just going to be my thing. I'm always in a tuxedo T-shirt of different colors from here on out. I love it. I think it's Mark Emmert. He took down an entire institution and then just sort of threw his hands up and said, you know what we want to do? Let's let Congress figure it out. That's always a good way to do it. We're not going to take any leadership or accountability.
Zero.
We're going to let the government figure it out. My vote is for Mark Emmert.
Based on the different categories we have in this, Emmert would qualify for a handful of these awards. Ben Simmons, by the way, not a quiet quitter, just a quitter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm with you on Emmert, and that's where my vote would go. Haley, I'm eager to find out who's winning this award.
For the record, I do feel underdressed sitting next to you guys, but the winner of the Quiet Quitter Award, essentially the laziest person of 2022, is Mark Emmert. You guys are right on the money.
Look at that. Look at that. 2 for 2 on the winners with Mark Emmert. I think that was an easy one, Hutton, given the collapse of the NCAA and his sitting by and doing absolutely nothing about it.
And on top of that, the Kansas City Jayhawks was also his last impression.
That was a tough moment.
Yeah. Congratulations or no. Not congratulations on the career of Mark Emmert as the president of or former president now of the NCAA.
We go back to Haley Carania with our next award.
The next one is the Best Rant Award. This one's pretty self-explanatory. The finalists may or may not be athletes, but they sure do know how to run their mouths. And the finalists are New York radio legend Mike Francesa, fired head coach of the Denver Broncos Nathaniel Hackett, and finally, Colts owner Jim Irsay. Francesa has been nominated for this rant on Bob Costas' constant yammering. Let's take a listen.
Beta got a home run. So you got 3 home runs. You use the power. Costas, who will not be quiet no matter what. Listen, Costas has just, I don't know, he thinks that I guess every word is golden because he just will not shut up. Everything's a history lesson. And we don't need a history lesson every 2 seconds. Okay? Everybody's a Yankee fan. They have Yankee history. They understand Yankee history. They know it backwards and forwards. This is not a history class. It's a baseball game. Be quiet. Do the game. He's driving everybody crazy. He must have said 1,000 times, the Yankee home runs. We know the Yankees have doubled their home runs this year. We know the Indians hit 127 homers and the Yankees hit 254. We know that. Everybody knows it. Make the point once, not 4,000 times.
Yikes. Well, despite being gifted Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett makes the list for this rant that didn't age very well. Roll it.
What a disaster.
Come on, y'all. Russell Wilson. Holy. Very exciting. I look at it as, somebody asked me when we were at the combine, what do you look for in a quarterback? And I said that tough, smart, accurate, athletic. I mean, go into the dictionary and you'll see Wilson there smiling with a big old smile because that's who he is. I mean, George hit on all of it. I mean, you're 100% right. Just his durability, his accuracy, deep balls. I mean, we're going to be throwing that thing down the field. And that's so exciting. It's so exciting for everybody. And it did take a lot of people. It took everybody in this building. Thank you for everybody. Thank you, because this is very exciting for the coaching staff, for the players, for the team, for all of us. And it's crazy because you talk about him on the field a lot, as a football player. But just the father he is, getting to know this family. I'm not going to lie, I was very excited to meet his wife. Almost probably more excited, not going to lie. But sorry, Russ.
Jim Irsay finally makes the list for this presser that almost makes as much sense as hiring no experience Jeff Saturday to coach the Colts.
We're the 4th winningest franchise in the league since 2000. That means in the upper quartile of winners, we're in the top quartile of that upper quartile. I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience, and he has tons of experience. I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage, but I do know how to build a football team. And there was no other candidate. We were fortunate that he was available.
I'll be frank. I asked Mr. Irsay, tell me why I am a candidate you would consider in any role
to do this.
You know, no one's perfect in this game. You know how many shots Michael Jordan's missed? I don't know what we would have done, if anything, if he wasn't available. And you guys can try to diminish him all you want, but that's just your words. They have no substance to it because there's no truth in it. And you guys missed one question for him, and he can't answer it since I'm answering. Have you talked to Peyton yet? Don't answer. Don't answer. Love to see it. Love to see it.
What do you think, guys?
This is a layup.
That's so good.
Speaking of Jordan missed shots.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
This is a layup, and it's because Jim Irsay, Chad, shocked everyone by selecting Jeff Saturday as the interim head coach and then doubled down. What you didn't hear is within that he said that the rest of the coaches in the NFL, they coach scared. And Jeff Saturday coming in not knowing about coaching in the league would actually benefit him because he's not going to be scared about having the job.
Listen, that Irsay, just the upper quartile of the upper quartile, the laughter, the weird joke about Peyton Manning, the whole thing is pretty perfect. Mike Francesa had a good rant. My one objection to it is he acts like everyone's a Yankees fan in the world that's watching that baseball game in the playoffs. Of course we all knew that the Yankees doubled their home runs. Not everyone knew that. So he is busting Bob Costas, which I like, because at times I find Bob Costas to be insufferable, but I think his material in doing so is lacking. And Nathaniel Hackett, first off, clean up that lav mic, bro, when you're brushing up against it the whole time. And second, that's just par for the course for that guy. I think this has got to be Irsay, Hutton. It's got to be Irsay's award to win.
I hope it is. Jimmy Irsay deserves this rant of the year for an interim head coach that is probably going to be their general manager. Who knows? Who's winning?
He earned this Chutton.
And the winner of the best rant of the year goes to Jim Irsay.
Yes.
You guys just keep hitting it right on the money.
Jimmy.
Whoever's voting on this award is really, really smart. That is the winner right
there. Can we add Shane Beamer for next year for his rant with Dow Loggins? Can that count? It's like a film that comes out just before the Academy Awards.
Have you guys heard of Michael Jordan?
Yeah, I don't know. Have
Bill
you talked
Parcells? Have you talked to these people?
Have you called Laquan Treadwell?
I mean, that was an incredible rant. But I think because, it's like the voting year for the Oscars. I think, December 1st maybe was the cutoff. So since that happened in December, we could have Shane Beamer eligible for next year's award. But for this year's next award, we send it back to Haley Carania.
All right, next up is the Keith Olbermann Beta Award. It's named after, obviously, the biggest beta ever. He's the kind of guy who will trash his ex-girlfriend decades later, and the finalists of the Keith Olbermann Beta Award are almost as bad. The finalists are Texas A&M Aggies head coach Jimbo Fisher, Alabama wide receiver Jermaine Burton, the NBA's resident crybaby, LeBron James.
Chad, you have the honors because there is no other candidate that can possibly win than one.
Look, there was a story that we kept alive for a while because everyone else wanted to shut up about it, and that's because Nick Saban wanted everyone to shut up about it. Jermaine Burton did some sort of backhanded slap/pie face into the face of a young college woman for Tennessee on the way off the field as a big, strong, tall, fast wide receiver for the University of Alabama. And then Nick Saban defends it sort of by saying, it's really a scary situation when you're out there. You're scared of this small woman that's walking, minding her own business? You're really scared of that? Hutton, it's got to be, at least for me, the beta of the year has to go to Jermaine Burton of Alabama.
Yeah, but there were no acceptance speeches even prepared by Jimbo Fisher or LeBron James for this year's award.
They're going to be shocked. If they win, they're going to walk in here completely ill-prepared to deliver an acceptance speech.
Haley, who wins?
I can't even call this a winner, but the recipient of this year's Keith Olbermann Beta Award is Jermaine Burton. Jermaine
so.
D-Bap, and you won't make the list next year. That's all we got to say.
I'm the only one that's going to get a standing ovation for that award
I'm with you.
But this is the type of award you give it away and no one's happy about it, but I will stand and applaud that decision by our committee.
Yes. Next up, a even better award.
A bigger award for sure.
Yes, better than Keith Olbermann.
Way better. Big shoes to fill here. Our next category is named in honor of beloved Mississippi State coach Mike Leach, who sadly passed away on December 13th of 2022 after he was hospitalized due to a heart condition. Let's take a look back at one of Mike Leach's most memorable moments.
First of all, what kind of mythical powers does a Sun Devil have? We got to consider that. I'm going to say the Wildcat's out. The Trojan, does he have a horse or is he on foot? Does he have a bow and arrow or just his sword? The Bruin, definitely formidable. Another bear up there at Cal. The tree, I imagine that tree's going to get chopped down. Unless we're going to go with the bird and somebody might get pecked or something, I don't know. The duck might lose interest and just fly away and get out of there, which may be good advice under the circumstances. The husky, no chance. The beaver, well, we'll see how long that beaver can hold his breath. The ute, again, we're back to, is he on horseback? Does he have a bow and arrow? Did he trade for a rifle? I mean, because if that ute's got a rifle, there's some definite problems. You'd have to get one of those Harry Potter activists to read up on how you kill a Sun Devil, because there's a lot of outside stuff there. As far as a beast alone, a buffalo's going to be pretty hard to tangle with. I mean, a buffalo's utterly outstanding. Did I leave any of them out? The Cougar will find a way. Clear-minded and crafty, a combination of stay out of harm's way and attack when you get your chances or your openings.
Obviously, Mike Leach, a hero, gone way too soon. So before we get to the finalists for this one, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about Leach's legacy and what this category means for you?
Chad, he's one of a kind, and he's also the end of an era because he's so difficult to replace in terms of someone in sports that will speak their mind to the level that Mike Leach did, no matter the setting. That's the key here. You could ask him a question at a halftime interview, post-game after a big win or loss, or at a press conference setting, and he's going to give you the same respect and a thoughtful answer, and it's going to be entertaining. No matter what he was talking about, I was listening. There's not many, and in fact, maybe one or two others total that I find that interesting right now in today's sports landscape.
And it may be that talk right there of all of his knowledge of Native Americans and animals and all the mascots and who would win in a fight that led me to request for Christmas to get his book on Geronimo. We had the co-author, Buddy Levy, on this show to talk about that. Read it in one day. It was that entertaining, that insightful from Mike Leach. Sort of sums the guy up. He's one of the greatest football minds of all time, and he could write a biography of Geronimo and make it entertaining where you read it in one day.
Yes. He's gone, not forgotten, and he's going to be missed. Not for Haley, what he did, not just for what he did on the field as a coach, but for what he meant just in the media world, because he would answer literally anything you could toss his way.
All right, well, the finalists for this award are Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, SNL funny man and womanizer Pete Davidson, and lastly, Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter CEO Elon Musk.
Chad, I wrote a column this summer for OutKick on Mike McDaniel and how he's the most interesting guy because he's a he's a Yale history major.
Yep.
Turned head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Run game coordinator with Kyle Shanahan, has followed Kyle literally everywhere. He backs his way into the Miami job based on the lawsuit from Flores. Otherwise, we're probably talking Sean Payton. And now we're talking about Mike McDaniel because not just for the job he's done as a coach, but also he's the most similar to Leach right now because you can ask him anything and he's going to have a thought-provoking conversation. I'd love to sit down and have dinner with this dude.
Yeah, no disrespect to the other finalists here, but I feel like for this award, if Mike Leach is the namesake, we got to give it to the guy who's coaching football like Mike Leach.
Yep.
That very much is not in line with the standard talk of most football coaches from a personality standpoint, from how they deliver their message. Everything's a little bit different with Mike McDaniel in a good way. I hope he's the winner, but we go to Haley Carney to find out who is the winner.
Is this thing rigged? The winner of the Mike Leach Most Interesting Person of the Year award is Mike Daniel.
Yes. Yeah, and rightfully so. There is no way Pete Davidson is winning an award named after Mike Leach.
I mean, Pete Davidson's won enough awards. It's the girls he dates.
Yeah.
Those are the awards for him. I don't think he needs anything
else. Is Kim
else.
Kardashian an award?
Yeah, he's received enough in life. I mean, it's fine. We interviewed Pete Davidson back in the day.
He's a squatter.
Yeah. Remember how he talked about how he's like afraid of older white men who tell him to be funny, and that he was fearful of us during the interview, that he thought we were going to start yelling at him to be funny the whole time. Anyway, Pete Davidson, funny guy, but not our winner for this. Haley, I think we have one more award left. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have one more special award to announce, the OutKick Person of the Year. And the finalists for that award this year are the quarterback for the UT Vols, Hendon Hooker, MLB legend Pete Rose, and Bill Akins, the umpire who kicked Clay Travis out of a Little League game. Guys, the winner will join us in studio after the break. How exciting is that?
I'm very excited. I have no idea how Pete Rose is nominated for this award. I don't know what he did in the last year. We'll have to talk to the committee about that.
He answered his phone. He was on the show.
Yes, he came on the show, so we felt good about that with him.
He also placed
not
the
sure
first
that he's
bet,
not sure that he's done a lot. Hendon Hooker has published
he's great for this.
Christian children's books, and he single-handedly almost resurrected a proud football program into national prominence, and led one of the greatest games we've seen in recent college football history. And then you got a guy who had the audacity to throw Clay Travis out of his son's baseball game, which to me holds a special place in my heart. But now that I've laid all this out here, Hutton, and we found out that the winner is here with us, I'm sure after bashing Pete Rose, he's about to walk through that door, 2 moonshines in, and then surprise us all.
There is a card show somewhere
and
in
I'm
town.
going to be confronted by Pete Rose after bashing him.
So we have this coming up?
It's coming up.
That's next on OutKick 360.
Back to the Christian thing in the broad picture. Your father, how many kids, if you don't mind saying, do you have several kids, one kid?
Seven children.
You have 7 children, so you're a big family man. I did not know that.
Yes.
How many sons? Because this is what I kind of want to dig into.
I have 5 sons.
5 sons, perfect. As a Christian man, how do you feel, like, what is your job when it comes to raising young men in modern America?
Number one, to teach my boys to know and love Jesus. That would be their primary identity in life. To everything else being completely secondary to that. That is number one. Number 2 would be to make them capable men, right? To make them well-rounded, to make them, able to handle themselves, to make them strong physically, able to fight, able to shoot, able to protect their future, their own families. A great quote, Robert Heinlein, and I'm going to butcher it, but I will attempt it anyways. He basically says that a man should be able to plan an invasion, change a diaper, cook a meal, build a house, he just goes down this list of, you should be able to do all these things as a man. And then at the very end, he says specialization is for insects. And I did not always think that. Right. I mean, there was times in my life where I didn't care about learning how to weld or be mechanically inclined or any of these other things. I was like, oh, I just want to be a commando. I just want to go and shoot and do hard stuff. And that was a mistake. I mean, I think I've said this before on, I did 2 ship deployments, 2 ARG deployments as a young frogman. And honestly, I was arrogant at the time. And man, here you're on a ship, which was kind of miserable. And I had a bad attitude about it, instead of, because I'm like, I should be on land training more. And instead of going, okay, this is where I'm at. Yeah, I don't have to like it, but there's all these master machinists and welders and guys that are, in charge of charts and navigation, to navigate across the globe. And here I could have, if I would have showed just a little bit of interest, those guys would have been happy to be like, oh yeah, I'll teach you how to weld. I'll teach you how to run a lathe, all these things. That now I'm like, man, I want to learn all that stuff. I want to be able to do everything. and some of that's reinforced now. Kind of, we live out on a little bit of a farm, so you do need to be able to, when stuff breaks, you need to be able to fix it yourself, and so there's a lot of value in that. So I want, number one, I want my boys to know and love Jesus, and then number two, to be capable. It's actually, so we do a program called Father-Son Ministry, where it's gone through different iterations. Currently, the way we run it is you show up, we pray, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we start training. And that was very deliberate right there, that, hey, we honor God first, then we honor our nation, and then we start to train. Most of the time we do jiu-jitsu. So that's been just super cool, having the boys go from it just looking clownish, them rolling around, to, man, they're, some of those boys, I will actually, break a sweat rolling with them now, and they will absolutely catch some guys with triangles and arm. Like, they're actually learning jiu-jitsu.
The Chuttons continue on OutKick 360. Big thanks to Haley Carania. Crushed it with the categories and the presentation. Thankfully, she did not go full Ricky Gervais on us at the Golden Globes.
I didn't want to cry today, so I'm glad she didn't do that. I would hate to leave here in tears.
I may cry based on the in-studio guest. We have the OutKick Person of the Year. So, Chad, among the finalists.
I'm getting ready to do a drum roll.
Hendon Hooker.
Yep.
Pete Rose.
Yes.
And Bill Aikens, the umpire who tossed Clay Travis from a Little League baseball game. We've had all three on the show over the last 12 months. But there is only one man who can live up to Man of the Year, considering he threw out OutKick president Clay Travis from a Little League baseball game. Bill Aikens, the umpire, in studio with us.
The only winner
is the Man of the Year.
Bill, how does it feel to be both number one on the scorecard and number one in everyone's hearts?
Well, Chad, I told my son I wouldn't cry, and I'm just really, really trying to hold that in. But I have dreamed about this day since I was just a little boy. So it feels amazing.
Did you think, Bill, when you showed up at that Little League park on that fateful day, that you would commit an act that would win you OutKick Person of the Year by tossing Clay Travis? Or was it just an ordinary day?
Well, you know, it wasn't just an ordinary day. There was something about the air. There was something about the feeling that day that I knew was going to be different and could change the trajectory of my life.
Yeah. So and that thing that was different was a millionaire hurling F-bombs at you.
Yes.
So congratulations, because that's what happened.
So let's reset, because Clay came in studio with us and with Bill earlier. Here's a photo of it, but we had both in to relive what happened the previous weekend, where Clay admitted that he got tossed and we found the umpire. Chad, you found Bill, and we had Bill in, and I mean, everyone's on your side here, Bill. But
I
Clay,
feel like I even just tweeted it out. I think Bill saw the tweet and got in touch. He was a listener and viewer of ours and knew Clay. So let's
give the 60-second recap of what happened here. This is early in the game, late in the game, and you knew Clay was behind you, right, if I remember correctly, and he makes the comment, "You have to be effing kidding me." I believe that's the quote.
It was kind of a question and a statement.
Yes, yes.
At the same time.
Which sounds like Clay. That is a statement I've heard before.
Yep.
And
it tracked when we heard that.
Yeah, and Bill, you obviously heard it too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, this hasn't kept me up as many nights as it probably did Clay, so my recollection is not probably as clear as his would be. But as I best can remember, it was earlier in the game, close game. I had no idea Clay was there.
At all?
No, I had no idea. Honestly, I didn't know until I heard it, turned around, and the only gentleman that was in the vicinity was Clay Travis.
But you knew it was
Clay, by the way,
when
being
you
a
turned
gentleman
around.
in quotations.
Okay.
He was surrounded by women, mostly family members, his mother, I think, included, and is just dropping F-bombs left and right towards Bill in this Little League game.
Have you thrown anyone else out since?
Probably.
Man, you do it so regularly, Bill, you just forget.
Every week.
It seems like a memorable moment when you toss someone from a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually more of a restriction. I think I had one other person this year that cussed that I had to actually remove. So,
Was it a coach or a parent?
Or
a player?
That was a coach. That
Okay.
was a coach.
Assistant coach, I bet.
Absolutely.
Someone
Every
doesn't
time.
know.
Yep.
Every time.
Bill, I coach softball at the 7 and 8 year old level, and I will tell you, I will never curse at an umpire because I respect the work that you do. Not at this level. Now, when they get to 9 and 10, it's no holds barred. Who knows what's going to happen?
I understand. Hey, and I wouldn't expect anything else.
You've been a great sport about this. People are like, "Is he really coming in?" And Clay's going to be like, "Yes," and it's going to be just fine. Just chill. It's going to be awesome. And the fact that you not only knew Clay, but you were a fan of OutKick made it even better. That's why you, sir, are the man of the year for OutKick in 2022. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I did prepare a short acceptance speech, if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
We'll play you out.
Yeah, I was going to write it down, but I didn't. So, first of all, I just want to thank my wife. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have the opportunity every weekend to miss time with my family and go be with your family and get yelled at by the parents. Secondly, I'd like to thank the parents for taking it so seriously. I understand little Jimmy will be the next Derek Jeter, and so I appreciate that competitive spirit that you guys bring to the game and to Little League Baseball. Third, my umpire partner, Doug. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't show up week after week to do this. And last, but certainly not least, right, Clay Travis. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind I would not be sitting here today to accept this Chutton if it wasn't for Clay Travis. So thank you, Clay. Thank you.
The man of the year. And to Doug.
Promised myself I wouldn't cry.
That's
Here
right.
I am.
To Doug.
After that
Bill, to
acceptance
you.
speech.
Thank you, sir.
Bill, cheers, brother.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers to the
Hey,
weekend.
have a great 2023.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
To the Chuttons as well.
I pray that you throw out another media mogul this year also. That's my wish for you, Bill. Cheers.
Back at it on Monday.
Cheers to the Chuttons.
Absolutely. OutKick 360 across the OutKick Network. Join us at 3 Eastern Monday.